Okay, our next video. We've already talked about the wine rack and the Lazy Susans. Next, in Tier 2 tools, the paint rack and vortex mixer. So here we have the top portion of the paint rack. These uppermost cells are 3D printed by a buddy of mine. He got the program on Thingiverse as an STL file. There are 6 sections altogether that, of course, interlocked. They're all attached from the back to this piece of thin plywood. This section, the top section, will hold looks like 120 paints. Vallejo colors fit in there pretty good. I do have a couple of bottles that don't fit in there, but if you're doing the printing yourself, you can of course enlarge those a little bit. I mean, you could run it all the way up to run your craft paints in this size bottle. So that's pretty handy. I love how there's really no wasted space in between them. They fit together really well in a kind of a satisfying way. Down below we have my first paint rack, which is 20 feet of inch and a... It measures 1 3/8 inches. They probably consider it to be 1.5 inches. Anyhow, that is 20 feet, and they are all the cells are 2.25 inches deep, which is just the right size for Vallejo, my preferred paint. Enough to hold them with the cap sticking out so that I can see what color it is. And as you notice, I've gone through and painted the caps of all of them. Vallejo paint, probably any paint, is not going to stick too well to this kind of plastic. So I have sanded lightly the top of each one, primered them with white, and painted it with the color that's on the inside. That way I can see what I've got. I don't have to see the label. So most of these are Vallejos. Some of them are not. This, for instance, is a Humbrol color, antique bronze. I decanted those into these little squeezy bottles that are similar to Vallejos, but not quite. They were I think it was one of my Wish.com experiments that went okay. The bottles they're all right. It allows me to putting them in these dropper bottles allows me to use up paints that I probably wouldn't ordinarily. I might have bought them just to experiment with them, and now of course I don't want to waste them. Even though I've gone to Vallejo for pretty much everything except for airbrushing, but so that's what happens. You got other paints laying around. They're all acrylic. I don't mess with enamel so much anymore, although I've got a bunch in reserve and I need to use it up, so I might be switching to enamels here and there just to use up what I've got laying around. I've got them split up into colors. For whatever reason, I've got a lot of browns, and the greens are up here. All the metallics plus a red are diagonally this way. I can reach this from where I'm working at. It's not central like a lot of workbenches I see. The paints play a central role. For me, however, I don't use them enough for it to be right there. I'd prefer to have the tools in my wine rack, which you saw on a previous video. I prefer to have those there. I use them a lot more. If I'm going to be getting a paint, I'm going to grab 2 or 3 of the colors that I need and use those as I go. I'm not pulling that out, using it, and then putting it back. I generally end up with about 20 of them on the bench, and then one day I just put them all away. And then, you know, I don't paint for a while again because I'm building. I guess it's just my style. You know, I build for a while and then paint. I like to build as much as I can before I paint. So that is this is an old drawer from a desk, and notice how this pattern fits in there perfectly. I'd really like to change things up and have it all to be this hexagon stuff, but that just fits in there so well that it just satisfies me. It's one of those things that you don't plan for. It just kind of happens, and like it was meant to be. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is the Vortex mixer, which is down here. This is an apparatus that creates a vortex in a liquid inside of. It's supposed to be for test tubes, but what we have is, what we're going to be using it on, of course, is paint bottles. It shakes it in a tight little circle, and in a liquid like water, it does a really awesome job. You can actually see the vortex being created in there. Paint, though, I think it's a little too thick for it. I mean, I've got to hold this on here longer than what I've got the patience for, really, in order to get this fully mixed up. I did have it was like a cardboard tube that fit on here fairly well, and I'd slide this down in there, and I'd turn it so that it was on all the time, and I'd just let it run while I was doing something else. But it would go haywire after a minute, and it would throw it somewhere. So now I just use it when you push on it. I mean, whenever people brag about these, they just show themselves mixing it for like 15 seconds, and that's all you need. I haven't run into that. It maybe for a paint that you just used last week, but if you run into one that's been sitting for a long time, such as this one, where you can see that it's separated down there in the bottom, it's going to be quite a while before that puppy is fully mixed up. So it's got several speeds, and I mean, that one's shaking pretty good. I kind of prefer 5. And of course, it's got plain off, straight up on, and then only on when pressure is being put on it. So you can buy these brand new that aren't like official laboratory stuff, or you can buy an old, weird, used one that was once owned probably by a mad scientist. I say that because, look, there's rust. So you know, who knows what that guy got into, the previous owner. Who knows what he mixed up. Okay, that is it for the paint rack and the Vortex mixer. A must-have on many, many model benches. Okay, subscribe if you would, and that will keep me going to the next video. Party!